Redditors who have been in a coma. Did you dream about anything during that period? If so, what about? I was in a coma after car accident. I only remember one thing. I was walking down a street. I fell to my knees while coughing. I grabbed at my throat. I looked down and saw my esophagus on the ground. I then fell onto my side. I learned later that was probably my vent tube coming out of throat. Actually, this is kind of neat. Because it means that, on some level, your brain understood that something you relied on for air was being removed. Either that, or it just hurt like a mofo. Edit. Esophagus is for food. Trachea is for air. I should have known the most attention I'd get on Reddit would be to point out a mistake. As someone with sleep apnea, I've had similar experiences. I once dreamt that I took a sip of water and the water turned to gravel in my mouth. I've also had dreams of struggling to breathe only to wake up half suffocated. I sometimes dream I'm coughing out / vomiting thick, warm, cotton-like material. Always wake up fine. And I never can figure out what it means. If anything. I've heard of this before. It means spiders are crawling around in your mouth when you sleep. You think they'd help me clean my teeth? Lazy bastards. Edit. My top comment is about cleaning my teeth with spiders. Reddit. I love you. If they're not paying rent, they could at least help a bro out. Not me. But my father. My father was in a coma for 3 months and had a repeated dream of a bear stealing his potato chips. Sorry, Dad, in a coma. Chips are for kids. I was in a coma for 8 weeks. I remember nothing. You should do an AMA. That's an AMA that would bore me into a coma. Do an AMA when you're awake. No, that's a dumb idea. Do it when you're in a coma. I was in a medically induced coma for a week and a half courtesy of a car accident. My family was at my bedside the entire time. Whenever I would move, they would calmly say to me that I had been in a bad car accident. I was okay. And I was in a hospital. In my dreams, I was going about my daily business of college classes and coffee houses. The twist would be that I was introducing myself as having been in a bad car accident, but I was okay and in a hospital. Or in class, I dropped a pen because my arm hurt, and the student in front of me says that of course my arm hurts because I was in a bad car accident, and so on. These morphine dreams varied and were many. From the surreal to the mundane. Then I had the realization that if I've been in a bad car accident, that I should go to the hospital. So, in my dreams, I walk into the local college town's hospital. Politely check into triage saying, "Hi. I've been in a bad car accident, but I'm okay and I wanted to get checked out." That's when the nurses and doctors descended upon me in a life-saving frenzy. After that, I opened my eyes. Weird how the timing always seemed to line up like that for dreams. I worked as a neurosurgery nurse for 3 years. I worked with a number of comatose patients and I assumed they would hear me. I always told them what I was doing to them. The kind of day it was. Complimented them in any little way. When I think about it, I could carry on a fairly long conversation with them. I hope they didn't mind my ramblings. My God, this lady won't shut up. Doesn't she know I'm trying to sleep? Seriously though. I think that's important. Good work. I spent 10 days in a medically induced coma following the birth of my youngest son. He will be 3 years old this September. When I woke up, I remember being very upset about a conversation between 2 nurses that took place in my hospital room while I was sleeping. I've always wondered if that conversation really happened or if it was a dream/nightmare. What was the conversation? One nurse asked where my family was that day. I was a patient in the ICU, where visits were limited to 2 people at a time. I found out after I woke up that my parents and my husband would take turns sitting with me and going home to shower and sleep, leaving me alone only at hospital shift change when no visitors were allowed back for a period of time. The other nurse made a snide remark that they must be too busy taking the tags off all those new baby clothes to show up. And both nurses laughed. Then the first nurse said that she was going to give me pepper for lunch, which would burn. I then felt a sharp sting in my stomach, and the nurses laughed again. I found out that I was receiving heparin shots in my belly 3 times a day, which continued until I was discharged. For some reason the most unsettling part for me was the baby clothes comment, as I couldn't imagine why the nurses found it funny. My family did receive gifts from my church, and my son's teacher, as well as family and friends, many of which were brought to the hospital. As someone who regularly works in an ICU, I always wonder about my vented/unconscious patients. I make sure to talk to them and tell them what I'm doing when I go to do anything or move them, if I'm giving them meds or anything like that, because you just never know. I once had a patient who was in a coma start to cry when we were taking her to the CT scan, and I put my hand on hers and told her it was okay, that we were just taking her to get a scan and her family was in her room waiting for her and not to worry. And when she woke up she told me she recognized my voice and that she remembered me talking to her. Edit. To everyone who is sending me very kind messages of thanks, and to whomever gilded me with Reddit gold, you are all awesome. Some days at work can be really hard and make me question if I chose the right field of work to go into. Thank you for restoring my faith and confidence that I have. Thank you for that. Before I entered a coma, fell from the 2nd story of a gym under construction and landed on my head. I had watched The Grudge. So during the whole coma, I dreamed that I was trapped in a completely white room with the Grudge girl. She never moved and just stood there. But when I woke up from that coma, I refused to close my eyes for a couple of nights from fear. Edit. Thanks guys for the response. I got really into the dog thread. I'm not terrified of anything though. Just so you know. I just had that dream during a coma. That is the worst possible outcome. Maybe with the exception of death. I hope I'm not too late and people see this. I was in a medically induced coma for almost a month due to hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. I had a lot of dreams while under. I got sick very quickly. 1 week sore chest pains, next week having CPR for 20 minutes. Everything a few days before I crashed is very cloudy. Anyway, the dreams. Everything I dreamt was revolved around me being sick or in hospital. So I knew that much. I had a dream about getting dragged under the ocean. They were taking me somewhere I could be fixed, and that was the best mode of transport. I remember being in a hospital out in the desert and an army of bone/poverty-stricken people invading the hospital, wanted to be helped. Banging on doors, yelling to be let in. I dreamt that the light fixture they could move around above the bed was what was feeding me pills. I could see them falling down the arms of the light. I also dreamt that I was in a room with a pyramid of boxes that I could walk up and choose, and each one took me to a different time/place with one of my friends or family, and I could watch over what was happening. I also remember this one with a big buffed up black guy all oiled up yelling "pump it up" while exercising, trying to keep me alive. A day after one of my surgeries to have an LVAD implanted, I came out of the operating room and I had developed a clot in my left leg. That day still under, I dreamt about some big machine getting close to my leg and it was going to cut it off if I didn't get out of the way, but I was stuck and couldn't move. I don't remember what happened with that dream. But when I finally woke up, my family said that I got the clot, and if the surgeon couldn't remove it, I was probably going to have my leg amputated. One that really hit that I can't remember if I've told anyone, but I just remember being in a coma for over 9 years and finally waking up to my wife and seeing my 9-year-old son for the first time while in an ambulance, and I kept dropping in and out of the coma, not being able to communicate with them. I have plenty more from the same coma. A few I've never told anyone. I hope people read this. Good day, Reddit. I had bacterial meningitis when I was 8 years old. I remember the moments leading up to it, feeling sick, coming home from school, and climbing into bed, and the coming out of it phase. I remember having to pee really bad, and asking to go to the restroom. I was informed I could not get out of bed, and bedpans were available. I'm a chick, which I refused. Who knows if I peed the bed or what after. Having no context of what the time frame was. My memory of coming out of it for good. I remember waking up in which I can only describe as a dark room full of old people in beds. It was the ICU unit. I remember asking my mother why she didn't wake me up for Saturday morning cartoons. Where was I? Why was I at the hospital? I was in a coma from Friday morning to Tuesday evening-ish. It was very surreal. I am now a nurse. And when I think back about how this all happened, I wonder how much of it was dreaming/memory. And how much was real. If I had to pee, why? As I most likely would have been Foley cathed, etc. Was I really surrounded by old people in a black room? I think about my medical knowledge now, and how different it was in 1984. Back then everything was so different and primitive, I guess. When I entered nursing school I was floored to see everything on computer and tablets, as I hadn't been in a hospital since that time. Sorry for bad punctuation/grammar. Typing on a laptop is difficult for me. I don't know if I was in a coma. No one ever used that word. But I have a similar memory when I had viral meningitis. I was a teenager and I got sick on a Monday. I had a date with a girl that Tuesday. I remember going to the hospital, getting a spinal tap, getting transferred to a children's hospital in the back of an ambulance, and then falling asleep. I woke up, and I was still in the hospital. My first thought was that there was no way I could go on that date and I had to call her and let her know I was sick. I called her, and she told me that I had been in the hospital for days and that everyone at school was worried about me. I had been unconscious for like 3 days. I hope you still got that date. Hopefully it turned out to be one of those cute stories where the girl is now his wife. Op should elaborate. Op should lie and tell us they're married.